Listen, it all started with a Slack notification. For real, just one little green bubble popping up on a locked phone screen. If I ain't happened to glance over at the nightstand at that exact second while he was in the shower, I swear on everything none of this would have happened. I would have just kept on believing the lies, kept on making excuses, kept on building my whole life on a foundation made of sand. One little notification, that's all it took to bring the whole house down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you ain't gonna believe the mess that unfolded. So picture this. Me and Dante, we was together for 3 years, 3 whole years. We had a nice little apartment over in Midtown Atlanta. One of them new builds with a floor to ceiling windows and a gym nobody ever uses. We was that couple. The one our friends looked at like we had it all figured out. We had our routines, you feel me? Sunday mornings, we'd hit up the farmer's market in Piedmont Park. He'd get his coffee, I'd get my tea, and we'd just walk and talk about the future. We talked about getting a dog, a little Frenchie he wanted to name Zeus. We talked about buying a house out in Smyrna once we saved up a little more. I had a whole Pinterest board dedicated to it, girl. I'm talking shiplap walls, a big kitchen island, the whole nine. I really thought this was my person, the one I was gonna build a whole life with. My world felt solid, It felt real. But looking back now, I see the cracks was there the whole time. They started small. Little hairline fractures you could barely see unless you was looking for them. And honestly, I wasn't looking. Who wants to find cracks in their own foundation? It started with him working late. At first, it was believable. He was a project manager at this big marketing firm, and I knew it was a demanding job. But then a couple late nights turned into every night. He'd come home smelling like stale office coffee and something else. A perfume. A real expensive smelling one. Like something you get at Neiman Marcus, not the warm vanilla sugar I wore. I'd ask him about it, and he'd just wave it off. Oh, that's just Jasmine, my boss. Her office is next to mine. She be spraying that stuff all day. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I let it go. I wanted to believe him. Then it was his phone. That thing became a part of his body. He took it everywhere, to the bathroom, to take out the trash, everywhere. One time, I playfully reached for it while we was on the couch watching Netflix, and he snatched it back so fast you would have thought it was a hot skillet. He looked at me with this panic in his eyes, then tried to play it off, laughing all weird. He was like, "Babe, I'm waiting on an important email from corporate."
Mm.
I just smiled and nodded, but inside, something felt cold. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just laid there listening to him breathe, and I knew. I think deep down, a part of me Ben knew, but my heart just wasn't ready to admit what my gut was screaming at me. So I kept on pretending. I planned our anniversary dinner. I bought tickets to see his favorite comedian. I kept playing the part of the happy, supportive girlfriend because the alternative was just too damn scary to think about. My homegirls, Bree and Nia, they wasn't helping none either. We've been friends since college, my ride or dies. Or so I thought. Whenever I'd bring up Dante's weird behavior, they'd shut it down. Girl, you tripping. He loves you. Men with big jobs just get stressed out. You gotta be his peace. They made me feel like I was the crazy one, like I was insecure for questioning him. They'd be all, look at y'all, your couple goals. Let's plan another couple's trip to Miami. And like a fool, I'd let them convince me. Now, I'd push my doubts back down and focus on being his peace. I feel so stupid now, thinking about it. They was pouring water on me while my own house was on fire right behind me. So that night, the night it all blew up, it started off normal. We had dinner, he was on his phone half the time, same old story. He got up to take a shower, and I was just cleaning up the kitchen, tidying up the bedroom. I walked past the nightstand where his phone was charging, face down. And just as I passed, it lit up. It was a Slack notification, the little work app thing. The screen was locked, but you could still see the preview. The name said Jasmine, boss. And next to her name was a little red heart emoji. My whole body went cold. I couldn't breathe. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. That report you filed was impressive." In Chile, I knew right then and there she wasn't talking about no damn spreadsheets. The dot, dot, dot told me everything I needed to know. I just stood there, staring at that screen, and it was like the last 3 years of my life was a movie playing in fast forward. But this time, I was seeing all the deleted scenes. The late nights, the perfume, the phone, the weird excuses. It all clicked into place. I felt sick. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Something else took over. A strange kind of calm. I picked up the phone. I didn't even have to guess the password. It was my birthday. How stupid is that? I opened the app and there it was. Months of it. Whole conversations. Pictures. Them talking about me, laughing at me, planning their little trips that he called work conferences. It was all there in black and white and blue and green chat bubbles. When he walked out the bathroom, a towel around his waist, humming some song, he saw me standing there with his phone in my hand and the look on my face. He ain't even flinch. The smile just dropped from his face, and he got this cold, hard look in his eyes. He knew he was caught. I didn't even have to say nothing. I just held up the phone. He let out this long, tired sigh, like I was an inconvenience, like I was interrupting his day. And that's when he said it. He looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Look, I ain't even gonna lie to you. Yeah, me and Jasmine been messing around for a while now. And honestly, it's 'cause I needed a real woman. A woman who's about her business, not just playing house. A real woman." The words just hung there in the air between us. All the air got sucked out of my lungs. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the disrespect. The absolute cruelty of it. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to break me down and make me feel small. And then he delivered the final blow. I asked him, through tears I couldn't even feel, "What about our friends? What about Bree and Nia?" And he just smirked. That's the part I'll never forget. That nasty, self satisfied smirk. He said, "Bree and Nia? Girl, they been new. They think Jasmine is great for me. They helped me pick out your birthday gift last month while I was at her place. They think you've been holding me back." That's what broke me. Not the cheating, the betrayal, the thought of my so called best friends, my sisters, sitting with me, letting me cry on their shoulders about my suspicions, all while they were in on it. That cut deeper than any knife. And in that moment, something inside me just snapped, but not in the way he expected. He was waiting for me to scream, to cry, to throw something. He wanted a scene. He wanted to be able to call me crazy, but I ain't give him the satisfaction. I just looked at him, and all the love I ever had for him just evaporated. It turned into this cold, hard diamond of clarity in my chest. I started to laugh. It was a quiet, empty sound. He looked confused. I just shook my head, walked over to the closet, and pulled out my go bag, the one I always keep packed for weekend trips. I grabbed my purse, my laptop bag, and my keys. I ain't say another word to him. I just walked to the front door. He was standing there looking stunned, like he couldn't process what was happening. He finally said, "Deja, wait, where are you going?" And I just turned, gave him the sweetest smile I could manage, and said, "To find my peace." Then I walked out and closed the door behind me, leaving him standing there in his towel in the middle of the life we built, a life that was now his and his alone. I got in my Toyota and I just drove. I ain't have no destination. I just knew I had to go. I had to get away before I suffocated. That was the moment I realized they ain't just break my heart. They declared war. And I knew deep down in my bones, they ain't have no idea who they was messing with. They thought they was just getting rid of a problem, but they had just created a whole new one. Me. I drove for what felt like hours, not really seeing the road, just the city lights of Atlanta blurring past my window like streaks of wet paint. My mind was a hurricane, just replaying everything over and over. His words, that smirk, the names Bree and Nia in his mouth. Every memory of the last 3 years felt tainted, like a photograph left out in the rain. I finally pulled into one of them extended stay motels way out on the south side, the kind with the sketchy lighting and the lingering smell of cigarettes and regret. I paid for a week in cash, went up to the room, and just collapsed on the bed. I ain't even take my shoes off. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the popcorn ceiling, feeling a level of emptiness I ain't know was possible. For 2 whole days, I kept my phone off. I couldn't face it. I couldn't face the fake sympathy texts or the inevitable fallout. I just needed to be a ghost for a little while, to just breathe in and out and remember how to exist on my own. It was the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. I was at rock bottom for real. On the third day, I knew I couldn't hide forever. I had a job to go to, bills to pay. Life wasn't gonna pause just because mine had exploded. So I took a deep breath, plugged in my phone, and turned it on. In Chile, my world was on fire. The sheer volume of notifications almost made the phone crash. Texts, missed calls, and a flood of social media alerts. I clicked on Instagram first, and my heart dropped right into my stomach. Dante and Jasmine had launched a full scale smear campaign. They had posted a picture of them together, all smiles on a boat, with a caption that said, "Finally found my peace and my partner in success. So glad to be free from toxic, draining energy." And the comments, oh, the comments were a war zone. Bria and Nia were right there at the top. Nia had commented, "So happy for you both. You deserve a partner who builds you up." And Brie put, "When you know, hashtag power couple, my own girls, my bridesmaids." If I had ever been that foolish, they were publicly co signing my humiliation. It was worse on Facebook. Dante had written this long, dramatic post about how he had to make the difficult decision to leave a relationship that was no longer serving his growth, and how he wished me the best, but that he had to protect his peace from my instability. Instability. He was painting me as the crazy, unhinged ex, and people were eating it up. Strangers, mutual friends, even some of my distant family members were in the comments talking about, "I knew something was off with her," or "he's better off." They had gotten to them first. They controlled the whole narrative and they had turned me into the villain in my own story. The lies even spread to my job. I got to work that Monday and the air was thick. People were whispering when I walked past. Then, around noon, an email landed in my inbox from HR. It was a company wide memo, all vague and corporate, about maintaining professionalism on social media and the importance of upholding the company's image, both in and out of the office. It ain't mentioned my name, but it didn't have to. Everyone knew who it was about. Jasmine was an executive, and I was just a mid level analyst. It was a clear power move, a warning shot. She was letting me know she could ruin my career just as easily as she'd ruined my life. I was in the break room, trying to hold it together, when this woman I barely knew, Karen from the accounting department, came and sat next to me. She was older, always quiet, just did her work and went home. She looked at me and her eyes were just kind. She leaned in and spoke real low. She said, "I know what they're doing to you, and you need to be careful. I saw what Jasmine did to the woman who had your job before you, a girl named Patrice. She ran that girl out of town, slandered her name, got her blacklisted from the industry. Jasmine's husband, Arthur Vance, he's a heavy hitter in this city, a real estate developer. He knows she's a snake, but he protects his family's name. They are a machine, and right now, you're in the gears. Don't let them crush you like they did Patrice." And just like that, she got up and walked away, leaving me with my head spinning. It was a warning, but it was also a gift. She gave me a name, Patrice, and she gave me a key piece of information. This wasn't their first rodeo. This was a pattern. This was who they were. That was my first little glimmer of hope. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a hit. And they had a history. That night, just as I was spiraling, thinking about packing my bags and just leaving Atlanta for good, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It just said, "This is Arthur Vance. I have information that might be useful to you. We need to talk." My hands started shaking. Jasmine's husband. I thought it was a trap. I thought he was going to threaten me, tell me to back off. But something told me to respond. I agreed to meet him the next day at a little coffee shop way out in Decatur, far from our usual spots. When I saw him, he was not what I expected. He was calm, dressed in a sharp suit, but his eyes were tired. He looked like a man who had been carrying a heavy weight for a long time. He got straight to the point. He laid it all out. He'd known about Jasmine's affairs for years, not just with Dante, but with others before him. He said he stayed for their kids, for the business, for the image. But what she and Dante did to Patrice, and now what they were trying to do to me, that was the last straw. And then, girl, he opened his briefcase. It was like a scene out of a movie. He had a whole mountain of evidence. He had been quietly gathering it for years. Printed emails between Jasmine and the board where she fudged numbers on projects. Expense reports from her and Dante's business trips that were really five-star resorts in the Caribbean, all paid for with company money. He even had logs from the company's internal chat system, showing them plotting to push out other employees they saw as threats. He had everything. He was my mentor, my guide, the person who showed me the path. He told me, they think they're winning right now because they're loud. Let them. They're arrogant, and arrogant people always overplay their hand. They're going to keep making mistakes, and you just need to be ready to catch them. Document everything, every text, every post, every whisper at work. Let them dig their own grave. He told me the upcoming annual company gala was in 2 weeks. It was the biggest event of the year. He said, they're going to be there, acting like the king and queen of the ball. I need you to be there too. I need you to walk in there with your head held high. Your presence will be the catalyst. It'll be the match that lights the fuse I've been building. That conversation changed everything. I went from being a victim to being a soldier. I had a mission. I spent the next 2 weeks in a haze of focused energy. I created a folder on my laptop called Receipts. Every nasty text Dante sent me, and he sent a lot, swinging from begging me to come back to calling me every name in the book. I screenshotted and saved it. Every smug Instagram post Jasmine made, every lie they told, I documented it with dates and times. I even started carrying a little digital voice recorder in my purse at work, just in case. They escalated, just like Arthur said they would. Jasmine filed a formal HR complaint against me, claiming I was creating a hostile work environment by not being a team player. It was a bold-faced lie, but it was a fatal mistake. It created an official paper trail. HR had to launch an investigation, and I handed over a very organized file of the online harassment I was receiving from her and Dante, framing it as the source of the hostility. They were digging. Then, one night, they did something so stupid, so reckless, I almost couldn't believe it. They posted a picture of themselves on Instagram, kissing, and the location tag was the street corner right outside my motel. The caption was, "Some people just can't move on, so you gotta bring the happiness to them." They had followed me. They were trying to intimidate me, to let me know they knew where I was. I saved the screenshot, filed a police report for harassment the next morning, and sent a copy to Arthur. They were digging their grave faster and faster. I almost quit a dozen times. The stress was eating me alive. I'd sit in that motel room and just cry, thinking it wasn't worth it. Then I'd think about Patrice, the girl they ran out of town. I'd think about that smirk on Dante's face, and I'd open my laptop and get back to work. I wasn't just doing this for me anymore. I was doing it for anyone they had ever stepped on to get what they wanted. My pain had turned into purpose. I was no longer the girl who let people walk all over her. I was seeing this thing through to the end. The night of the gala arrived. I spent money I ain't really have on a dress. It was this emerald green gown, simple but elegant. The kind of dress that says, I'm here and I belong here. It was my armor. I did my hair, did my makeup, and when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The scared, broken woman from 2 weeks ago was gone. In her place was someone else, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. I took a deep breath, got in my car, and drove to the Intercontinental in Buckhead, where the gala was being held. When I walked into that grand ballroom, the whole place went quiet for a second. I could feel every eye in the room on me. I saw Dante and Jasmine standing near the bar with Bree and Nia, all of them laughing it up. The moment they saw me, their faces dropped. They looked like they'd seen a ghost. That look on their faces, that was worth the price of the dress alone. I ain't even looked their way. I just walked over to the bar, ordered a glass of champagne, and started mingling with my own coworkers, people who had been quietly supportive. Bree and Naya tried to come over, their faces all twisted up with fake concern. Nia started with, Deja, what are you doing here? We were so worried about you. I just gave her a cold, flat smile and said, I'm fine. I work here, remember? Their faces fell. They expected me to be a wreck, to make a scene. But my calmness, my refusal to give them the drama they wanted, it threw them completely off balance. I was playing a different game now, and they ain't even know the rules. I just kept my cool, kept smiling because I knew what was coming. I knew the real show was about to start. Right as the CEO got on stage to give his big annual speech, the two massive projector screens on either side of him started to flicker. Everyone thought it was a technical glitch, but then an image popped up. It was a screenshot of a text from Dante to Jasmine. It said, she finally left. The apartment is all ours now, baby. The room went dead silent. Then another screenshot. This one was an expense report for a client strategy retreat at a resort in Cancun, with a picture of them on the beach attached. The murmuring in the crowd started to grow. Then came the company chat logs. Jasmine telling Dante, just file the HR report on your ex. She'll be gone by Friday. That's the one that made people gasp out loud. It kept coming, slide after slide of their own words, their own pictures, exposing the affair, the misuse of company funds, the plot to get me fired, and even conversations about pushing out other coworkers they saw as competition. It was a symphony of their own self-destruction, playing out in high definition for the entire company to see. They were frozen in place, their faces pale with horror. They were being exposed in real time by their own hands. In the middle of the chaos, Arthur Vance calmly walked up to the stage, took the microphone from the stunned CEO, and spoke in a clear, steady voice. He said, as of this morning, I have filed for divorce from my wife, Jasmine Vance, on the grounds of infidelity and fraud. All of the evidence you see on these screens and much more has been turned over to the company's board of directors and our legal counsel. The room erupted. Security was already moving towards Dante and Jasmine, who looked like they were about to be sick. They tried one last desperate move. Jasmine started screaming that the images were fake, that I had hacked them, that I was obsessed with her. But it was too late. Nobody was listening. Her mask had been ripped off and everyone could see the ugly truth underneath. They were escorted out of the ballroom to a chorus of whispers and stares. The consequences they had set in motion for me had finally come back for them, 100 times over. The fallout was swift and brutal. The next day, Dante and Jasmine were both fired for gross misconduct and misuse of company funds. The company also launched a full investigation and ended up suing them to get back the money they had stolen through those fake expense reports. And the best part? That woman Karen told me about, Patrice, she saw the news. She came forward with her own story and her lawyer contacted me. She filed a massive lawsuit against both of them and the company for creating a hostile work environment and wrongful termination. They were getting hit from all sides. Dante, without his high-paying job and sugar mama, ended up having to move back into his mama's basement. Bree and Nia became social outcasts. Once everyone knew they were complicit in the whole scheme, their so-called friends dropped them so fast it would make your head spin. They dug their own graves, and all their friends just stood around and watched them fall in. And me? My victory was quiet. I ain't have to say a word. I just went to work, did my job, and watched it all unfold. A few weeks later, I got called into the new VP's office. They offered me a promotion, a senior analyst role that Jasmine had been grooming Dante for. The irony was so sweet. I moved out of that sad motel and into a beautiful new apartment in a part of town that was all mine, yeah, with no memories attached. I started seeing a new guy, a good man who's kind and drama-free. He's an architect, and he actually listens when I talk. We're taking it slow, but it feels right. It feels healthy. Sometimes I think about it all, and it feels like a movie I watched, not a life I lived. I learned so much about myself through all that fire. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I learned that my peace is the most valuable thing I own, and I'll never let anyone take it from me again. You know, I ain't destroy them. I never had to. They destroyed themselves with their own lies, their own arrogance, their own hate, I just stopped protecting them from the bill when it finally came due. I just let the truth come out, and the truth, well, it did the rest.
Thank you, Deja, for sharing this story with us. Chile, that story is a testament to how fast a life built on a shaky foundation can come tumbling down. It's one thing to be hurt by a partner, but to find out your own circle, your own friends, was helping them do it. That's a whole other level of pain. They ain't just break her heart, they tried to break her spirit and her reputation. And then, they tried to make her the villain in a story where she was the only one telling the truth. Now, there is so much to unpack here, for real. The mistake folks stay making is talking themselves out of what their spirit already knows. Deja felt it, you know? The perfume, him snatching that phone back, her gut was screaming, but her heart wanted to be quiet. Now look, a rule to remember is you don't let nobody's lies shout louder than your own intuition. Don't never do that. If I had to break this down for somebody going through something similar, it's this: document everything. Let me tell y'all, that folder Deja called receipts was her sword and her shield. When you take the high and mighty emotion out of it and just present the cold, hard facts, the dates, the times, the screenshots, ain't nobody can argue with that. And see, what folks don't understand is how powerful it is to stay calm when somebody is trying to get a rise out of you. They was expecting her to show up to that gala and act a fool, but she walked in there with her head high, a picture of grace. That's real power. Seriously, their own arrogance, their need to be loud and brag, that's what took them down in the end. They got fired for what they call gross misconduct, which honestly is just corporate talk for messing up so bad there's no coming back. Deja done been through the fire, but she came out stronger on the other side. She found her real peace, not the kind they was talking about on social media. She found the kind that comes from knowing your own worth. If this story gave you something to think about, go ahead and subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It really does help the channel reach more folks who might need to hear these stories. Let me know in the comments which city or state y'all watching from. I love seeing our community stretch all across the map. And right now on the screen, you're gonna see other videos from the channel. Click one and let's keep going.